Hello, everyone, and welcome to our hiring webinar this evening. My name is Chelsea Candy, and I'm the Director of People and Culture, and it's so great to be here with each of you today. To get us started, we'd love to know a little bit about who all is in the room with us. So please take a moment to comment in both your name, your pronouns, and also what is one thing that has been bringing you joy recently. And so I'll give folks a few minutes as they type in their response. You can just put it in the comment section just so that we can, again, know who all is in the room. Great. Deanne has family and friends who are bringing her joy. Thank you so much for sharing, Deanne. Okay, we have Lindsay who has chatted in that she's been loving the late spring weather. Oh my gosh, Casey has a pit bull dash hound mix named Tofu, who he recently adopted. Oh my gosh, I hope to see pictures of Tofu at some point. That's a wonderful name. Oh, Catherine also has a pit bull that brings her joy as well. We're a big dog team, so I'm curious and excited to hear more about people's pets. Allie, one thing that's been bringing her joy is visiting family. Vanessa, flower making. I am curious to learn more about what flower making means, Vanessa. You might have to share a bit more on that one. Brittany, she's been enjoying the sunlight and cooking more. And Adam, cat therapy is his joy. Kareen, that likes the culture. Okay, that's wonderful, Kareen. And Shondalyn. Oh, it's cut off. Oh, Parks. Okay. That's wonderful to see. Great. Well, please continue to introduce yourself just so that we can know who all is in the room and learn a bit more about what's been making your weeks. Again, I'd also like to thank you all for joining us this evening. We know sometimes Tuesday nights can be a busy time for folks, and we really appreciate you making the time to be in community with us today to learn a bit more about the exciting opportunities that UnCommon Law has to offer. Before we get started, I'd also love to thank the UCL team. We're joined by a wonderful handful of folks who have so much experience working within this field that are dedicating their time this evening to share a bit about that gift with you all. So thank you so much to Katie, Sue, Megan, Lily, Annie, Aaliyah, and of course Keith for making time to come out here tonight as well. I think we have a few other folks from UnCommon Law who have sneaked in as well who aren't presenting. So thank you folks for making the time to join and to begin to welcome some new folks potentially into our community. So the purpose of this webinar is to share a little bit of information for folks who may or may not see themselves in the different roles that we have open right now, and to give people an opportunity to really learn more about what opportunities we have as an organization, and to be able to ask questions both to myself and to some people who are currently either filling in these roles or directly supporting these roles. Please feel free to chat in questions at any point, but please note we may not answer them all at once. We will likely wait until the end to answer any questions, so please keep that in mind too. For a bit of context and history, UnCommon Law was founded in 2006 as a team of about 4 and 5 people. Over the past few years, we've almost tripled in size, and also we've really begun to spread our work out into a number of different areas that weren't really a part of the initial cohort. The organization was founded by Keith Watley, who's on the call, who may show his face at some point during this presentation, and he's incredibly excited to be here with us. We also are joined by, again, a number of different team members too, who were there in that 2006 founding and can really share a lot about the history and legacy of the organization as it's developed over time. But for now, in the beginning, this work was solely really focused on representing people through their parole hearings in front of a parole board. And we quickly learned that people needed a lot more support than what we were able to provide, in addition to the legal support that we were really helping people with. That additional support began as therapeutic support for different folks who are inside. And so we added some therapists to our staff and also some volunteers to really help make sure that we are able to broaden our impact with each of the clients that we worked with. And even though we kind of in addition to that, we kind of have learned quickly too that while we were making an impact for individual cases, there was this really clear and strong need to expand our work and to think about what it means to scale the work of UnCommon Law to impact more and more communities. From that intention, we've created the Home After Harm program, which is a in-prison group that really focuses on giving people who are incarcerated the skills, resources, and experiences to be able to navigate the parole process confidently. And a lot of this work is led by people who are formerly incarcerated as well. After we kind of changed our work to encompass home after harm, we've learned too that the policy landscape and the scope of our work could be a bit broader so that we can really think about the core policies within the state of California and what policies are needed or would be helpful to have change, or even some policies to prevent them from going into effect would be helpful for our work. So from that, we've created a whole new division of our work that's focused mostly on policy and what we can do as an organization to really make a difference in that field. So the webinar tonight is to share a bit about how all of our open positions, and right now we have 4, fit into this work of the organization more broadly. And we also hope to really provide context and answer additional questions on anything that may be on your mind as you navigate this application process. So that's a pretty high-level overview. And again, if you do have questions, please feel free to post them into the comments as they come up, and we'll be sure to answer them at the end. But for now, I'm going to hand it over to Lily to share a little bit about our open legal assistant role. Lily, are you online with us today?
Forgot to unmute. Thanks, Chelsea. Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here this evening. My name is Lily Paratori. I'm the managing attorney here at UnCommon Law, where I've been involved with the organization since around 2014 in various roles when I was a law student, staff attorney, and now I'm really honored to be the managing attorney for the organization where I oversee the legal work that our team does. And I'm really excited to be hiring for a legal assistant to support my work, my caseload and litigation that we're currently working on in our office. So I can speak a little bit about the role, and I will be as brief as I can. So this is a legal assistant role based out of Oakland. Thank you for this slide. And so this role is really someone who can do a couple of things. One is writing. We do a lot of correspondence with our clients in writing. We do legal work and research. And so I'm hoping to find someone who can be clear, succinct, and kind in how they communicate with clients inside. And so that doesn't mean using fancy language or, anything that's pretentious. We're hoping to communicate, but writing is a big, important part of this role. And so an ideal candidate would be someone who feels comfortable writing and is able to sort of understand their audience and who they're writing to. An ideal candidate is also someone who is organized and communicative. A big part of this role provides administrative support, including communicating with CDCR, scheduling visits. And so it's really important for that person to be organized, take initiative, follow through, and make sure that everything is done in a timely way and is also able to prioritize different tasks. Maybe the most important part of this role is someone who is empathetic and can build relationships. A large part of what I do is supporting people in preparing for their parole hearings, and we do that work over the course of months and sometimes even years. And so a lot of the people I've worked with have been incarcerated for a very long time, and so I'm able and lucky to find and build strong relationships with them. And so an ideal candidate for this role would also have that ability to build relationships and be empathetic, approach conversations from a place of empathy and curiosity rather than judgment. So those are some of the ideal aspects of a candidate, and here on the right is a little bit some examples of responsibilities, and I'm happy to answer any questions about those. I'm already seeing a question that I might answer quickly, Chelsea, if that's okay, about whether the person has to be in the physical office. I just want to be clear, we are going into prisons to visit in person when we can, and so that person would have to ideally be able to travel to prisons local to the Bay Area, and so they wouldn't have to work necessarily in the office, but would be in the Bay Area and able to travel with me and on their own to client visits. So that's a quick summary of the legal assistant position. I'll hand it back over to you, Chelsea.
Thank you so much sharing, Lily. Oh, and before you go, I have a quick question for you. I don't know if we are able to bring Lily back, but I am wondering, what is one thing that people can be excited for within this specific role or in this opportunity?
I'll say what I love about my job and what I would hope someone in this role would love is that every day is different and there are constant learning opportunities. And so it's also an area where we can be creative and thoughtful and challenge the board. And so for someone who's excited to sort of like take that fight on with energy and imagination, and kind of looking for how each day can bring something new to our work.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Lily. You're absolutely right. Every day can look different in that role, and I'm so excited to see the applications that come in.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Keith and Sue to just share a little bit about the EA position. And I'm actually going to kick that conversation off for both of them, though I will be asking them some specific questions on the role. So the executive assistant position within UnCommon Law is a really exciting opportunity to work with the wonderful Keith, who is online with us now. And Sue actually was our previous executive assistant before she was promoted to become our organization's policy manager while still providing legal assistant work to help support Keith. In terms of what we are looking for in this role, we are really hoping to have someone who is able to take initiative and also someone who is able to really kind of have some experience in providing administrative support to executives. Ideally, there's someone who is really willing to be empathetic and thoughtful as we work with our clients day to day, similar to with our regular legal assistant role. And also, we're hopeful to have someone, again, who's able to communicate very strongly, both in writing and also verbally as well, just to make sure that we're able to provide the most support as possible for people that Keith works with day to day. In addition to that, this person will be doing a lot of calendaring, scheduling, and providing a lot of logistics support. So being able to navigate all of these complex tasks and competing priorities will be a priority for this role too. I'm not sure actually if Keith or Sue have anything to add. Some example responsibilities, I spoke to this a little bit, is in calendaring, in drafting internal and external communications, coordinating travel and reimbursements, and also providing some administrative support with clients. So that's just a high-level summary of the role. But one question I would like to have Keith and Sue answer, if you're open to it, is what is one thing that's exciting about this opportunity and one thing that people can look forward to within this position?
I will jump in first to say thank you, Chelsea, for setting this up, and really appreciate so many people showing up to learn more about these positions. I'm not going to say much. I'm going to let Sue answer those questions, respond to those prompts. But I'll be around if people have questions. But I just want to say thanks to everyone for joining us to learn more about the work and how they might potentially join us. Sue?
Yeah, I'm happy to weigh in here. I think what's really exciting about this role is that you can learn about so many different areas of the organization. I certainly have had that experience of getting to learn about, our team is separated into sub teams, and sometimes it's hard to know everything that's going on in the organization. And as the executive assistant, you'd be working really closely with Keith in all areas of his work. Keith is an attorney, but he also works in our pilot program that we just launched inside prisons. He also works on the legal and litigation side. He works with supporting the whole organization and really everything that we do, and also in our policy work. So it's a really great opportunity for someone who wants to learn about all the different kinds of advocacy that we do, and also in, I guess, learning how an organization works, an organization that has its hands in kind of a lot of different areas. Also, I love working with Keith. He's really, I think it's also a really great opportunity to work with someone who has such deep experience and relationships in this work. So that's what I would offer, and happy to answer any more specific questions too.
Thank you so much, Sue and Keith, for sharing. I'm also seeing, and please again, folks, feel free to chat in any questions that you may have. And I know some folks are just joining us now. They're sharing some pieces that are bringing them joy. So I love seeing those come in too. I also apologize. Some folks are having some trouble getting in. Sometimes technology is an ally and sometimes it's a foe. So I apologize for folks who have experienced some tech troubles. Up next, we have some information on the Operation Associate role. And so this role is really great. You're going to be able to really work on being kind of like the glue of Uncommon Law in providing kind of both, being the person that people see sometimes when they walk into the office, someone who is able to really help make sure that things are organized and running smoothly. But before I go too far into it, I'm going to invite Katie to speak a little bit on the role, as she is our current operations director. Are you on it, Katie? Great.
Thanks, Chelsea. As Chelsea mentioned, I'm our operations director here at UnCommon Law, and operations is really the support system for our team doing the great work that we do. So this associate role will be, for many, the first point of contact with our organization, welcoming via phone calls or people coming into the office. The position will be based in the office. And we'll also support just our general organization of the organization. So if you're somebody who loves kind of systems, staying organized, keeping track of things, this role could be really great for you. And if you're somebody who can see yourself taking many different turns in your career, I think this role can also lay a great groundwork to give you exposure to different parts of how an organization operates. And it's also great for somebody who considers themselves a people person, because a lot of the work that we do is working with our team and also working with people that our team supports, whether it's clients or contractors and more. It says this on the slide, but I'll just note that this role is going to be based in the Oakland office, and UnCommon Law has a COVID policy that requires vaccination and booster. And it will likely be in the office 4 days a week. So the option for about 1 day per week as remote.
Thank you so much for sharing, Katie. What is one fun thing that someone could look forward to if they were to be hired for this role?
This role may be a little similar to some of the other roles, because what Lily said is like a lot of diversity in tasks. I think that is really great and people can draw energy from that. And also what Sue said about the executive assistant role, just getting exposure to so much of the organization. But in general, I would just say it's such a blessing to work at UnCommon Law and work on such a great team and to forward this mission. So that's all of the above.
That is wonderful. Thank you so much for taking time this evening as well, Katie.
Thanks, Chelsea.
I'm seeing some wonderful questions in the chat. Please feel free to keep them coming. It's not always likely that we are able to have everyone together. So any way that we're able to answer questions and make sure that people have the support they need, we really like to take advantage of that. So for the final role, we have the PSA role, and I believe Megan is online and able to speak a little bit about this position. Now, this one is unique. While a remote position is based in Los Angeles, and so there will be a requirement for someone to relocate to Los Angeles if they currently do not live there. So I just want to flag that piece because it's a little bit unique. And Megan, I'll hand it over to you.
Thanks, Chelsea. Excuse me. So this position, the Parole Success Advocate position, as Chelsea mentioned, is based in Los Angeles. and is supporting the Home After Harm program. And Chelsea named a little bit about that program at the outset of the conversation today. And so Home After Harm is a program that runs inside right now, almost two of the prisons in California, and is focused on helping people prepare for California's discretionary parole process. And the Parole Success Advocate is a really key position on a team that supports people through that program. And so as a Parole Success Advocate, some of what you would be doing in that role includes facilitating groups inside the prison, including like focused on board prep. And that includes things like learning a curriculum and then implementing the curriculum and a facilitation guide, using your own personal experience to guide the personal transformation, as well as like the board preparedness for people in the program through using like personal values of accountability, vulnerability, openness. It also requires a trauma-informed approach, a real like person-centered orientation to the work to guide people, but also facilitate spaces for healing from shame, for healing from trauma. So facilitation is a big part of that role. The role also involves supporting participants in the program on an individual level, as well as like holding group spaces. And that can look a number of different ways. It can look like visits, it can look like phone calls, it can look like letters. A lot of that is dependent on our access to the institutions and sort of what's happening with COVID at the time, where we've learned to be very adaptable. It also involves tracking participants' progress through the program, both through notes, but also through like collaboration with other team members in like on staff in the program. Some of this is also a new program. So some of what we'll be doing and some of what this role involves is also helping us revise and learn as we go. And so it'll involve revising program material over time and helping us continue to provide the best program that we can. A lot of this role involves like collaboration with other team members. And so some of the people that you'll be working with in this role include being supervised by a supervising parole success advocate, but also collaborating with a team of attorneys, of legal assistants, and others also on the team, like myself. You'll also be interacting directly with people who are both like working and living at the prisons. You may at times like interact with the public or potential funders. And a typical sort of work week for the Parole Success Advocate is usually like 1 to 2 days facilitating groups inside the prisons. Sometimes the hours for that may fall outside of normal business hours. So those days are not usually like a 9 to 5. Also 1 to 2 days a week of providing that individualized level support. So again, that might be like visits or calls or letters. And 1 to 2 days of collaborative meetings, supervisor check-ins, and other administrative duties. So those are some of the sort of key descriptors of the Parole Success Advocate role.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Megan. So I'm going to have to ask you the question I'm asking everyone this evening, which is, what is one thing someone could really be excited about if they were to get this position?
I think, as Katie said, there's a lot that others have shared about other roles that are similar. But one thing that I think is unique about this role and really exciting as a part of this, to me at least, is the ability to work together with an interdisciplinary team to provide the services that we're providing through Home After Harm. There's a lot of independent work that is done, but ultimately it's all through collaboration with attorneys and legal assistants and others. And I think it's a really unique and exciting part of this role and of the program that we provide.
That is incredible. Thank you so much, Megan. I'd like to take a moment to just invite everyone else from the Uncommon Law team back to answer some questions for the Q&A portion. We've gotten a lot of incredible questions so far, and I encourage you all to please continue sending them in. Our team will be happy to weigh in and help where we're able to. The first few questions are really focused on the legal assistant role. And I'll ask this one over to you, Lily. A question from Kimberly is a driver license or car absolutely necessary for the legal assistant position? Would you be able to weigh in on that one?
Sure, I'm happy to. A car or driver's license is not absolutely necessary, but a California ID or other form of identification that would enable you to be cleared to enter California prisons is necessary. So we can certainly find other ways of getting you there, taking a ride with me, or some other form of transportation. But ability to be cleared with a valid form of identification is necessary, but a car and driver's license is not.
Thank you so much for providing that context. Additionally, if folks have follow-up questions, please feel free to chat those in too, and we'll do our best to answer them as soon as we can. The next question is for you, Sue. Did you have paralegal experience when you were an executive assistant? This question is coming from Vanessa.
Hi, Vanessa. No, I didn't have paralegal experience. I actually didn't really have any legal experience. I had done a legal internship before, but a lot of what I learned was here at the job. So I hope that answers your question. And also, to be clear, the executive assistant role would not be very, very involved in the legal side of Keith's work. I think there would be a little bit of correspondence with clients, maybe some work around administration, like clearance, for example, working with prisons, but it would be less legally focused.
Thank you for answering that one, Sue. Great. The next question we have is from Shedrick, and they said, besides researching legal questions for parole boards, are there other claims on habeas this organization raises? I'm not sure who that question is geared to, but I think it might be Lily or Megan.
I can answer that, and Keith, feel free to chime in if you'd like. Right now, the primary litigation that we do is about challenging denials of parole or governor reversals. And most of the habeas petitions that we file are challenging parole denials or governor reversals. As I said, we've started doing some habeas petitions related to Eighth Amendment claims about the disproportionality of someone's sentence. So we do that. And we currently are litigating a broader habeas about effective assistance of counsel in parole hearings. And so as a part of that case, reviewing some of the discovery and documents that we've received from the board could be part of the role. I definitely love litigating, filing habeas petitions, and making trouble with the board. And I'm hoping to expand that work. And so having a legal assistant who would be excited to support on more legal research and writing would be really exciting. But it's definitely a growing area for my work and the organization just based on capacity. Keith, do you want to add or no?
I can add a little bit. All of the habeas corpus work we do is pretty much all of it is related to the parole consideration process and how to remove some of the barriers to having people succeed in that process. Sometimes when we're working with a client getting ready to go to the parole board or has been to the parole board, there may be some other issue that comes up, a rule violation report or improper use of confidential information. We might have to file a separate habeas petition to challenge that because it's in the way of our success with the parole board. But the last thing I'll say about this is, this area of the law has developed a lot over the last 20 plus years. But most of it has happened because of litigation initiated by people in prison, not by the lawyers or the legal team. We come in after the fact and sometimes clean it up, sometimes mess it up, but we're building on what's already happened from folks inside. So we honor and respect the work, the brilliance really that comes from inside.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Keith. The next question, and also for you as well, Lily. The next question is by Shunda, and it is, I heard that you said you must be vaccinated. What if that's against your belief? That's an incredibly important question, Shunda, and I appreciate that you raised it. It's also a question for me, so I'm going to answer it. So it is uncommon law policy for everyone to be vaccinated, especially or anyone who works inside prison or will attend the office to be vaccinated. And currently there is an expectation for everyone at some point to attend the office or be inside prisons. With that said, I think it's important to go a little bit into the reasoning why that's our policy. And most of that is really to make sure that we are able to adequately use whatever, resources we have to make sure that our clients who are inside are protected to the best of our ability to the spread of COVID. In addition to that, we want to make sure that our community in office is protected to the same degree. We want to make sure that people can really be able to go into work and not worry as much as possible around contracting COVID. And we acknowledge the different lived experiences that people on our staff have that make getting sick a bit more or less risky. So that's kind of the reasoning behind it. Now, with that said, we are able to provide accommodations, and that's solely if someone has a medical reason where they're unable to be vaccinated, or if there's a deeply, deeply held religious belief that makes vaccination against an individual's religion. And if that is the case, after the hire date, an individual can apply for an accommodation. Otherwise, we'll like to receive an up-to-date vaccination card to confirm an individual's vaccination status. So I hope that answers your question. If you do have any questions in follow-up to that, please feel free to either share them here or reach out to me directly, and hopefully we can really understand how to best support you. Great. And the next question is from Derek on Derek mentioned that he paroled from KVSP in December and was wondering which prisons he would be going into. I believe this question is for Megan for the PSA role.
Yeah, happy to jump in. So the Parole Success Advocate role based in LA, the program that we are running, the institution that we're running the program at is the California State Prison, Los Angeles County, also known as Lancaster. So in LA County, just north of the city of LA.
Thank you so much for answering that, Megan. I also am loving all of these questions. Please keep them coming. I feel like you all are interviewing us, which is kind of nice because it's really great to be able to share about some of the important work that we do here. The next question is for whoever on Uncommon Law wants to unmute and answer it. I will not, but the question is from Kareen, and it is, what do you think uncommon culture is like?
There might be a Sue question.
Yeah, I can start and then maybe people want to add. I would say that everyone on the team is really, honestly, everybody's really, really sweet and nice and helpful, and everyone's very dedicated to the work that they do. I think we definitely have a culture where we are super open to questions and helping each other out and, leaning on each other for support. And there's not an expectation that you'll just come in and hit the ground running and not need any kind of support. Or, I think that that's something that I really appreciated is feeling like it's welcome to ask questions and have curiosities. I also think there's a pretty collaborative culture and a culture where you don't necessarily feel like you have to be asking for permission all the time from whoever your supervisor is to carry on a new idea. I think people who want to contribute something to the team or have an idea can feel free to kind of take that forward and contribute what they feel is helpful. So those are the things that I would name. Anyone else?
Maybe we can hear from one or two more folks from the team. I also believe Annie is joining too. Hi, Annie.
I couldn't resist a question about uncommon law culture. I have some thoughts, and hi everyone. I'm Annie. I run our communications team. So I love to talk about the organization, and I definitely have an answer for this. I think that when I think about our organizational culture, there are maybe a few words that come to mind, and those are kind and thoughtful and also joyful. I think the people that work at Uncommon Law are some of the most heart-centered people ever. There's a lot of care that's taken in relationship to one another, particularly as we're engaging in work that can be really challenging. And it's a really thoughtful environment, right? We're really intentional about building a culture and a place where people from kind of all different walks of life can thrive and really find meaning in their work. And about understanding, how our various experiences and identities impact the way that we're showing up for each other. And then I think that it's a really joyful culture. The work can be really sad and hard and frustrating at times, but we also find a lot of time to laugh with each other as a team. There are a lot of dogs and babies as part of the extended Uncommon Law family. And I think what I would say is every morning, I definitely look forward to seeing the people that I work with. Because, not only are we doing great work together, but we're getting to build really special relationships with one another while we do it. So those are my 2 cents. And I had to dive in.
Thank you for jumping in, Annie. Would anyone else like to say a few words about our organization? It doesn't have to only be positive too. Again, I want folks to know this is not scripted. You can say whatever you want, positive and negative. Okay. Well, folks change their minds in terms of speaking to the culture, please feel free to just, jump in and share if you'd like to. Great. The next question is, what does a typical week schedule look like for the legal assistant position? And especially kind of understanding from in-person visits versus in-office versus remote work. And this question is coming from Lindsay. I think that Lily, Sue, and Keith, you all could speak a little bit to what that looks like, but please feel free to jump in as you wish.
I can answer, and Sue, if you want to jump in. So right now, this position would mostly be working remote with 1 to 2 days a week, doing legal visits of some kind, whether that's in person if COVID allows, or video or phone visits. So we are still, for the most part, working from home versus in the office, depending on the role. And then, as I said, visits depend on COVID. And right now, many of the prisons that my clients are at are in locations where we cannot visit. So right now it's looking a little slow, but definitely you could expect, once things get back and running, 1 to 2 days in prison on visits. And the rest doing follow-up, administrative work, document review, that sort of thing.
Thank you so much for sharing, Lily. And one thing I'll just say in terms of kind of where people are at for the work, right now people are able to opt in to working in our Oakland office, and we're looking to expand that gradually while still being mindful of the spread of the pandemic and individual work-related needs too. So that's kind of the current situation. It's going to be a hybrid setup for most, with some in-person requirements for many of these roles. But if there are any specific questions, it is dependent on role, so please feel free to ask and our team will be happy to answer. The next question is from Adam on the PSA role. The question is, what would the starting date for this role be? And are there any plans to extend the program beyond the 2023 dates? I think this is a Megan and Keith question, perhaps. So please feel free to jump in.
Happy to. Thanks for this question, Adam. So the starting date for the PSA role is as soon as possible. And, we have to get through our hiring process, but we are definitely looking for someone to fill the role as soon as reasonably possible. And in terms of, are there plans to extend the program beyond the 2023 date? Our ultimate goal with the program is to have it be statewide and available to everyone in the state of California before they go through the discretionary parole process. We have a long way to go from where we are now to that point. And at this point, we are in what we're calling like the pilot phase of the program. And that is what extends through 2023. We're working very hard to be able to expand beyond the institutions that we're at now and beyond that time frame, but it is contingent on us getting additional funding to keep that going.
Thank you so much for answering that, Megan, and also for uplifting just the importance of the work of the Home After Harm team. Really being able to spread these type of resources and supports to so many different communities across the state of California is such an incredible mission and goal. And I hope folks are just as energized by that vision as we are here. The next question is around the operations associate role. So that question is from Kareen, and it is, what are your expectations for an employee? How do you measure performance for the operations associate position? And is there training available for improvement or employee development? That's such a wonderful question, Kareen. Our operations director had to step out for a moment, so we might kind of jump back to this question in a minute. Oh, she's back. And we are able to see her baby as well. Hi.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much, Kareen, for this question. It's a great one. I think UnCommon Law is really focused on performance as it lines up with the job description. And the major responsibilities are really about some of the administrative project management, but then also a lot of the welcoming tasks that we described around answering the phones, welcoming people to the office. We do annual performance evaluations that Chelsea helps lead. And for new hires, we also do a 3-month evaluation, like a 90-day evaluation. There is absolutely training available. So everybody goes through a management center training. And then we also have some on-the-job training as well. And then we have some staff-wide training opportunities. So, we hope that we're all growing in our roles here.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Katie. I also want to lift something that came up when we were talking about culture. I really do think it's an environment where anyone can ask a question and be supported by the people around them to find an answer or solution to common problems. So we really believe in not struggling alone for every position. And so if anyone does have a question while on the job, we do our best to really show up in the ways that we can. The next question is coming from Shannon. Shannon is requesting, as a legal assistant, what would my role be when I visit prison without you, or without their lawyer? And what would that look like? I think this is a Lily question.
Sure.
Question.
Yeah, Sue, do you want to answer?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Have I done independent legal visits? I think I can just say a little bit, and then maybe Lily, you can take it over. But typically, I do legal visits with Keith, and if I weren't to, it would just look like I take legal calls independently, and I think they're pretty similar. It's just there's been issues with being able to go inside with COVID. But it would look like preparing notes before going into a call and making sure you have your goals outlined for what that visit should be covering, and printing out any documents or getting any documents for the client from the office before you go in. And then when you go, you'd have, maybe a 1 to 2 hour visit where you're meeting with the client and working on, in most cases, parole preparation. And it's likely that Lily will have worked with you to prepare you on on how to engage a client for that visit and what your goals would be. Lily, what would you add?
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. And you highlighted what I was going to add, which is that I certainly would not ask anyone to undertake a visit alone or without support or without a plan that I've helped to create. And definitely would come with time as you get to know my clients and their cases better. And so we would certainly work together on outlining what goals or topics need to be discussed with a client during the visit, what kinds of conversations you could have to make progress on that goals. If there's legal, like client writings that you might review together, that's been one area that legal assistants have done a great job supporting in, is helping clients prepare and give feedback on the writings that we submit to the boards. That's often something that happens in legal visits as well, as working together to review and give feedback on documents. So that's what I would add to that.
Thank you both so much for sharing. And Sue, I didn't mean to jump in front of your experience as a legal assistant. I appreciate your patience there too. The next question, I believe Megan may have spoken to this. Oh, wait, let's see. The next question is from Alidia, and I'm so sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name in any type of way. But the question is, will you hire a person for an internship program? That is a really great question. And this one's also for me, I believe. So we do have internship opportunities as an organization. They typically are posted on our website, depending on the nature of the internship. And I think that if you have any questions about when an internship opportunity may be on the line, if you're hoping to work within a specific department, I highly encourage you to also feel free to just reach out to our team, and we'll be able to let you know if we are or if we're not able to accommodate those requests at this time too. But typically we post them on our website as those positions become available. The next question is for Eliazaram. I think I might be saying that name wrong too. I apologize. But the question here are, what are the strengths and the team's biggest challenges currently at UnCommon Law? What are the company's plans for growth and development as it aids the community? I'm going to let anyone who would like to jump in to answer this one answer it, but Keith, I might start with you on this one.
All right, I can kick it off. I think I'll talk about some of the challenges. There are many, I think, with any organization, but especially the work we're doing and the way we're trying to do it. And specifically, I'm talking about we're trying to build a team that is addressing some really challenging issues. Sometimes it's about trauma histories, experiences that our clients have. Other times it's about helping the broader public understand who's in prison for violent crime and why they're not actually any different from other folks on the outside, and why they deserve an opportunity to heal and to come home. And then other times the challenges are about, as we bring people on to work on our team, how do we best support them? And sometimes it's making up for skills they didn't get while they're incarcerated for 20 or 30 years. Other times it's helping to navigate all the social and emotional challenges that come from the trauma of prison and the trauma of transitioning home, and to work in a workspace that, like most, aren't designed to fully account for the whole person. I think that's one of the big challenges we have, to try to change our work culture so that it best supports the folks on the team who have very different skills, backgrounds, experiences. So that's a lot of challenges. And I name it because, as a team, it's what we're taking on. We're not trying to shy away from it, because it's a reality. If we really want to create something different and be something different for our folks, these are some of the challenges we have to take on. Maybe others want to talk about the strengths, but I spend a lot of time thinking about the challenges too. As far as plans for growth and development, long term, my personal goal is to put us out of business. I want us to not be necessary as an organization because people have a real fair, healthy opportunity to come home from prison. Ideally, it wouldn't be prisons, but as long as there are, we want people to be able to come home. So we want to change this structure so that it's not dependent. Someone's success in this process is not dependent on having an Uncommon Law legal team or team of advocates working for them, and it's not dependent on them being wealthy or connected or influential. That most people have a fair opportunity to come home. So that's going to take a long time and a lot of work by us and others in the community.
Thank you so much for sharing, Keith. Does anyone have any additional thoughts on that question? Maybe someone who can speak to our strengths?
I'll jump in, which is actually just to uplift, I think, something that Sue had said earlier in an answer, which to me, like one of our greatest strengths is how this has been my experience of working at Uncommon Law, is how we show up for each other as colleagues, and like the spaces that we create, I think they don't eliminate those challenges that Keith named and that like we face in doing this work, but it makes it possible, I think, to face those challenges and to work through them based on the way that we work together and the way that we like orient as colleagues. So to me, that's one of our greatest strengths.
Great. Thank you so much, Megan. So I want to be mindful of time. I know we have about 7 minutes left. And I see a few questions that are along the lines of, okay, so what's going to happen from here? What's the process moving forward? Are applications reviewed on a regular basis or on a rolling basis? What's the time frame for a hiring decision? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So there are 2 questions along those veins. I will say that we do hope to review applications in the next few weeks for folks, particularly in this next week. So we want to give some people some time to really kind of take in the information from this session, take in the information for a resume and cover letter review next week, and then kind of we hope to really be having at least a pretty clear understanding of who we'll be bringing into interview. The exception for that is for the PSA role. That role we have a quicker timeline for, and we're hoping to get applications for that by the end of this week. So please keep that in mind if that's a role that you are applying for. In terms of the timeline for the hiring decision, it really depends on the role. Each role kind of goes through its own different process, number of interviews, and number of other requests we may have from candidates. And we also may have multiple rounds of interviews depending on the number of applications we have and if we feel like we have a representative sample of folks who have applied as well. So it depends a little bit. I think that our goal for all the positions is to get them filled just for your sake and for ours. So we do our best to do that when we can. And sometimes that can be a bit more challenging than others. Another question is what a typical work week would look like for the PSA role. And maybe we can answer 2 more questions before I close this out.
Sure. So for the PSA role, typical work week will be 1 to 2 days facilitating groups inside the prisons. And again, that may be outside of normal business hours. 1 to 2 days providing individualized level support for program participants. And based on just sort of like the access that we have to the institutions, what the COVID conditions are, sometimes that may be through visits, that might also be phone calls or through letters. And then also 1 to 2 days a week of more administrative duties, collaborative meetings with team members and with staff, and like supervisor check-ins and things like that. So that'll be a fairly typical work week for the PSA.
Thank you so much, Megan. The next question is it common to see folks at Uncommon Law move from intern to legal assistant or legal assistant to attorney? That's a really great question, Pao. Thank you so much for asking it. So I will
Wait a
say
minute. This person looks familiar. Good to see you, Paul.
we're excited to have you here. So it's a good question. I think that, kind of like for any role, we really hope that people have experience that can set them up for success in any position that they might fill within Uncommon Law. So being an intern for us is definitely a way to get some of those experiences. And they'll say it's not the only way. You might be facilitating groups while inside. You might have experience writing letters for folks while inside, or joining or participating in any kind of work group if you are someone who has experience in incarceration, or you might just have relevant experience from a different career trajectory that can be applied to support someone in their role. So the answer is yes, it definitely helps, and we do look at a pretty wide range of experiences to really build out the work that we do here as well. It is great to see you here, though, too, Pal. And I will say, though, in terms of the legal assistant to attorney piece, for now, for Uncommon Law, people do usually require a law degree to become an attorney within Uncommon Law. So if you have the credentials, I think it's definitely something that we can look into as well.
We have had interns become attorneys with us, and something similar to a legal assistant become an attorney too. So it happens.
Nice. Thank you so much for sharing, Keith. Keith has a lot of historical knowledge that I do not yet have, so I'm always appreciative. Cool. And there's one more question that maybe Lily can answer super quickly since it's the last one. And that is, with legal assistant position, what's a typical volume of records that need to be managed for parole proceedings? And if we use a case management software?
We use Clio currently, which I will not comment further on. And we do a typical volume, hundreds of pages of documents. I would say we do have to review central files, which can be, a couple thousand pages at times. So there is a lot of document review involved, but definitely part of my role as an attorney supporting me is helping you to figure out what needs to be sifted through and read carefully to understand how to support our clients and our cases. And so I certainly never want anyone reading C files alone without any context. So it's typically a lot, but there's definitely tools and training and support that I can work with someone with to make sure that we're reviewing the right relevant things to set our clients up for success.
Thank you so much, Lily. And thank you all for joining us for this panel today, for answering these questions. Thank you, folks, for submitting your questions. We will be having a resume and cover letter review session tomorrow. If folks want to revisit their application, go through any of their materials, or if they are just kind of curious to know what we look for during our resume and cover letter experience, I promise it'll be relevant for you if you apply to this role or if you apply for a role outside of Uncommon Law. So please feel free to join us there for some more information. If you have any questions, or if we didn't get to your question, please feel free to email us or email anyone on our team. That can be through Bamboo HR or through any of us directly through our website. You can reach out to folks as well. We're so appreciative to have you come here today again. Thank you so much. And I hope that you all have wonderful evenings. Thanks, everyone.